Okay, so hello. Right, well, we're just about the right time to start. So maybe I'll start. Maybe people are joining. We'll give people 30 seconds or so to join in. They'll hopefully people are, ready to watch us waffle about books and beer and history. So hello to everybody who's joining.
Hello everyone.
And I can see comments popping up actually, so this is actually working okay.
What do they say? Why are you two so ugly?
Yeah, that's pretty much exactly what they're saying. No, they're saying, what have we got? Hello, basically, lots of hellos here. So we've got lots of people joining in. Hello to everybody. Hello, Cindy from America. Okay, so loads of people are joining in. We'll give them a couple more. Oh, books and beer, fab combination, somebody says. Right, so right, well, without further ado, then I think we should probably start. We've got people joining. It looks like quite a few people have joined already. So I'm going to introduce. This is my first one of these done ever really. So lockdown boredom has set in, and we're not the only authors to be doing this sort of thing. But I asked my good writer friend Steven A. McKay on for a chat. So I'm going to give him a bit of an introduction. So Steven McKay, do you mind being called Steve, or do you normally get called Stephen?
I prefer Stephen. In
Okay,
Scotland,
that's fine.
In Scotland, it's Stevie.
Stevie.
Aye, that's what we in Scotland we say Stevie, but Stephen's fine. I kind of prefer Stephen.
Okay, yeah, well, I'm the same with Matthew and Matt, so I prefer Matthew as well. So that's good. So we both prefer our full names. Fine.
Aye.
Right, so Steven is a hybrid author, I think you'd probably call you, although you started out self-published, independent, but now...
Mostly self-published with the odd.
Yeah, I think you can call yourself a hybrid author, right? Because you've got stuff traditionally published as well. So is the author of the Forest Lord series, which is a series of books about Robin Hood, and more lately, the Warrior Druid of Britain Chronicles, which I believe you're on book 4 now. Are you writing?
Yeah, I'm writing book 4.
Writing book 4 now. Also a standalone novel set in Roman Britain, Lucia.
There's a hardback, fancy hardback.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, it's
very nice.
Nice.
And also lots of novellas. I don't know how many novellas you've written now based in the worlds of your books. Quite a few.
6 or something.
6 or something, yeah, quite a few. And it's been translated into German and Spanish. Any other languages that I'm not aware of?
No.
Not yet.
Scottish doesn't really count, does it?
Scottish?
Aye.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I mean, if they've been translated into Scots, I don't know. But
I didn't speak that myself.
He's also Stephen's also worked on a Robin Hood game, which is coming out soon. I think in May. I think you said to me the other day.
Yep.
And if that's not enough, we can talk about all of these things in a bit more detail in a minute. If that's not enough, he's also a talented guitarist and a singer and songwriter in his own right as well. So pretty much amazing, talented guy and perfect guest to have to talk all things books, music, history, beer. And we've both got beers with us at the moment. So cheers if you've got a beer as well at home and you're watching us. Oh, you haven't opened yours, but yeah.
Oh, actually, it's open.
Oh, it's opened.
The Dragonhead. We'll try this.
Very nice. So, welcome everybody. I hope everyone's had time to join now. That's coming.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, and I hope you are well wherever you are in the world. So, I think it's been a very strange time this last 12 months or so in the world, and in Britain we've been in lockdown for longer than it seems possible, and we're still really in some form of lockdown or other at the moment. So I thought one of the first things we should probably talk about is how that's affected our writing. I thought obviously both of us have I know I'm full-time writer, but you're part-time, but you do have days set aside for writing, so you spend quite a lot of your time writing. So how's it affected you, this pandemic?
Well, the time factor's fine. Like you say, I work part-time, my day job, but I've been furloughed.
Okay.
I went back to work for 3 months. They let us back because I read meters. If nobody knows, I'm sure you all know anyway. So we're back for 3 months, and then they furloughed me again in January. So I've got plenty of time to write, but the actual sitting down at a laptop part, I think that's quite a small piece of the puzzle. I'm sure you'd agree that the biggest part is actually getting the ideas in here and being creative.
Yeah, it's exactly the way I feel. I've had this conversation with people before, and I've said that because people sort of say, how do you write a book or whatever, and I've always said that writing the book is actually the easy part. You know, the writing. If somebody told me, here's a plot, you know, to write, and here's each chapter, and this is what's going to happen in every chapter of the book, and here's the characters and everything, I could sit down and write a novel, no problem at all. It's the coming up with the ideas and the characters and what they can say and do.
Because the ideas have to come on their own.
Yeah.
Whereas once you've got the idea, you can just write it. If you know what you're doing, you know, it's like any other job. Once you know what you're doing, it's easy. It just flows. But it's actually knowing the ideas, what's going to happen next, what's this character going to do, and the stress of the lockdown. I know that. I mean, at the start of lockdown, it was a case of we're all going to die, basically.
Yeah.
And it was quite frightening. Especially like, I've got kids, and we were all really frightened. You know, what if I get it and pass it on to them? I've got asthma, which is very, very mild, but they're telling you, oh, if you get asthma and you catch this, oh, so it was a kind of very fearful time, and trying to write with that on you, it's been hard in that way for me.
Yeah, I mean, I found it exactly the same. Very, very difficult to get my head in gear. I keep sort of saying, you know, I feel like I've lost my mojo many days. You know, it's like, whereas other times I could just sit down and, you know, the house to myself, maybe take the dog for a walk. The kids have gone, you know, my youngest daughter's going to college, and, you know, they'll be out. My wife would have gone to work, whatever. Now everyone's in the house. There's stuff. So it's not just the worry from the news and the pandemic and whether you're going to die. Although that really, I do think that really preyed on my mind early on. But I think as the pandemic or the lockdown has progressed, I've become less worried about that, but my head has still been full of other stuff, and just people banging around the house and being there. And even though they make an effort not to, you know, interrupt me, and I don't know, it's just something about not being alone and not being able to sort of switch off and find the headspace really to write has really affected my productivity.
You hear people downstairs banging about, or even if they walk up the stairs. And you hear
distracts you,
because you think they're going to come in and ask me something, and I'm in the middle of a scene here.
Yeah.
It just throws you right off.
And then when they do come, sometimes it's like, oh, I brought you a cup of tea and it's lovely, you know, but then you think, oh no, now I've got to get my head in gear.
You're out of the scene then, aren't you? And that's even when you have got a scene in your head and you're writing it, but actually coming up with ideas, because most of my ideas usually up to now have came at work, because I do a lot of time walking or driving on my own. So my ideas just kind of flow in when I'm on my own at work, and I've not been at work. I'm in the house, surrounded by other people. So the only time I really get to think maybe is like in the shower or something, or when I'm going to sleep at night. It's only a couple of minutes. It's not really enough to come up with a book worth of ideas, but I'm getting there now.
I'm the same. It's sort of slowly clawing it back. I mean, it's funny because when I went full time a couple of years ago, writing, and before that I'd done the same as you. At first I was writing, I was working full time, writing in my spare time, and then I was writing 1 day a week, as I took like 1 day out of work, and I was writing then I went to 2 days a week writing. And when I went to full time, I decided there was no way that I could just double, like I couldn't just do that much more writing. I mean, I thought you need space to come up with the ideas, like you say. It was the driving to and from work and being in work, like at lunchtime, sort of taking a walk at lunchtime and thinking about stuff. So suddenly I think my daily sort of target is 2,000 words a day, but when I was working part-time, I'd aim to sort of hit 3,000 words in a day if I was writing just one day. But I can't do that, and at the moment I'm really struggling to hit my own self-imposed targets, but you know, getting there, making some sort of progress.
That's some sort of progress. So I'm maybe doing 1,000 words a day. But I'm getting 5 days a week now.
Exactly. Well, it's great for you in the furloughing, giving you that extra time. But I'm trying to be less hard on myself. I get really frustrated with myself if I've set myself a 2,000 word limit, you know, target, and then I hit 1,400 or something. I'll be really angry with myself, you know, and I'll have to sort of say to myself, look, calm down. you know, tomorrow's another day. It's a slow, you know, it's a slow, you know, thing. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint, you know, to finish a
This
novel.
is
But
the problem that you've got if it's your full-time job,
yeah,
because you feel like, oh, this is my job, I need to do it.
Yep.
Whereas before, when it's just a hobby, if you don't write that day, you think, well, it doesn't really matter. You know, you can do it whenever, it'll come in its own time. So there is a different stress when you're kind of doing it as a job.
I think so. Yeah, I heard. I think it was Lawrence Kasdan, the screenwriter, and who said, becoming a writer is like having homework for the rest every night for the rest of your life. Which I thought was pretty much. That feels like that.
It does take some of the fun out of it.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're actually writing the scene, as we said, it's still fun.
Yeah.
But when you're forcing yourself, like especially during this lockdown, you think, I must write, I need to write, I need to get this book out.
Yeah.
But it's daft, because when I put Lucia out, there was like a gap of 2 years. Well, maybe not as long as that. There was a gap of a year anyway. Well, I'd put nothing out because Lucia was with Audible and I had nothing written in between that. And it's not like all my readers disappeared.
No, I know. I keep on telling myself this. But at the moment, I've got a contract now, so I've got dates, and I actually, the latest contract I signed, I've got deadlines to hit, and I actually said to them, add a couple of months on to my normal deadline for each of the next 3 books, because if it carries on like this, I'm just not going to be able to hit the same productivity as I could before. And they were fine about it, you know. So I ended up, I've signed up, but I still have a target. You know, I have to hand in, and nothing would happen if I didn't. I'm sure they'd be quite fine and just let me slip by a month or something. But it's that pressure of thinking, shit, I've got to, you know, have this book ready to hand in. Because I've never missed a deadline.
If you push yourself too hard, the book would suffer.
Yeah, well, it probably is.
It was just garbage, and you'd think, "Oh, I need to get it out." So,
well, that's the constant worry, isn't it? So we're talking all about now. You know, you talked about Lucia, and we're talking about the different books and coming up with inspiration and stuff. So it brings me on to the next topic that I wanted to cover, which is, you know, where do you get your inspiration for the stories? Because we both seem to agree that that is the most difficult part of the writing process, really, is to come up with inspiration. So can you tell us a bit about some of the inspiration, you know, that you've had, where you've got the inspiration for the different novels and stories?
Well,
some of them.
you were the inspiration for Lucia, because we had been talking the night before on Facebook, and you
expect my 20%. Yeah.
Well, you had said that your publisher wanted a standalone novel, which I think turned out to be Wolf of Wessex.
That's right, yeah, that's right.
And up to that point, I'd never thought of doing that. And I went to work the next day, and I'd been listening to Jane Eyre and Wuthering Heights and stuff, just strange stuff to me that I'd never really listened to or been into before. And I listened to the Audible versions, and your idea about a standalone novel just was in my head. And the whole idea for Lucia just came up. So that was, if me and you hadn't had that conversation, I'd probably never have written Lucia.
Oh, I'll take full credit.
Yeah, well, it was all your idea.
Thank you. Yeah, I remember sending you the synopsis.
It did actually feel like somebody had done that. It was the most amazing thing ever. It just seemed to appear in my head out of nowhere. It was amazing.
It's funny how that happens with some books, and some books are a real chore, and some books just come. I mean, like you mentioned Wolf of Wessex, actually, that was one of those books that really just didn't write it. I hate it when people say it wrote itself, because it was still difficult, and there were still days when I was like, I don't know what to write next. But it really was an easier story to write. It just sort of seemed to flow much more easily than other stories have done. And it's great when the characters kind of almost land fully formed in your brain, and everything just sort of flows, and one scene draws into the next, and you think, okay, I can see where this is going, this is all making sense, and it all just clicks.
Well, that's when it's really fun.
Yeah, really, absolutely. And I think going back to the previous conversation, I think that's where some of the writing, the pressure that we put ourselves under in the pandemic and the situation of lockdown, you feel I've got to do this, I think that's where it takes the fun away. To some extent, I'm sure most writers would agree that, you know, not every day is fun, because you have to sort of force it. Although I'm always surprised, or usually surprised, the next day when I think I've really forced the words and I don't really think it's good. The next day I read it and I think, actually, it's fine. I don't know. It looks. I read it back and think it's fine. What are we worrying about? It's fine.
Are you worried? Well, I don't actually read mine.
No.
Okay. And that's no. In fact, the book I'm writing right now, the fourth Druid book, which I can tell you is going to be called Bear of Britain.
Bear of Britain.
Yeah.
Nice.
Nobody steal it.
No, well, it's here. You've got evidence here. It's here. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, it's already been stolen anyway. There's a few books called Bear of Britain. It's King Arthur's kind of title. But that I'm on to about 47,000 words now.
Mm-hmm.
And I've not read any of them back.
Really?
So
okay.
That's just the way I work. I never really bother.
So that's interesting. So a little conversation about process then. So you just write each day and you don't even go back and look at it.
No, I know. I kind of have it all in my head anyway.
Okay.
I've got a very good short-term memory, like for the sake of like a couple of months or something like that. So I kind of know everything that's there. Whereas like a book that I wrote 4 years ago, I don't really have much recollection of it. But for a book like this, I know what's in it and I know where it's going to end. So I won't read it back until the editing stage starts. Sometimes I'll read it back at 30,000 words or something if I'm kind of worried about it.
Okay.
You say you read it back, you think maybe this isn't going to be very good. When you read it back, you think, well, it actually is fine. I don't know why I'm worrying about this.
Yeah, well, my process is slightly different. So I do write chronologically, like from beginning of the story, second chapter, third chapter. I just write on. I don't. I mean, some people sort of jump about a bit in the timeline of a story. They'll write the end first, and I don't do any of that. I just keep writing it as it goes on, and I think it helps propel the story along. But what I do is I'll write as quickly as I can on one day, and then the next day before I start writing, I'll read what I wrote the day before and make minor tweaks and changes. So it's sort of a slight polish, but not proper polish, but it's a slight polish, and it kind of gets me in where I am in the story. I know where I am, but at the same time, it sort of slows me down a bit, because if I've written 2,500 words, it takes me a couple of hours to read and kind of go over it all and sort of tweak it. And I don't just sort of whip through it. I end up sort of thinking, oh, maybe I should move that comma, and all that sort of stuff. So it takes me a bit, but yeah, that seems to work.
I've seen some authors on Facebook, they'll say that they do what you do, but then they bin the whole lot that they've written the previous day.
Never do that. Never do that.
How depressing could that possibly be?
I always feel like binning the whole book when I hit about halfway through. So I'm about just over 50,000, 55,000 something of the sequel of A Time for Swords, which is my latest book, which you've showed Lucia. Here's A Time for Swords. So yeah, which you're reading. That's right. Yeah. So I'm writing the sequel of that, and I'm about 55,000 words. So about the same sort of place as you are in your novel. And I always feel by this point in the book that it's total rubbish and it's going to be dreadful and I should throw it all away. But I've learned that actually that probably isn't the case. So I just carry on now and just ignore the voice and just keep pushing on.
Well, some people are going to say it's rubbish anyway.
Well, that's true. That's true. And
so it doesn't matter how good it is or how bad it is. Some reviewers are going to say it's 1 star anyway. So
yeah, you're absolutely right. That you're not a real writer until you got a 1-star review or many. Yeah, that's true. That's true. As long as somebody likes it.
As long as you like it, and then other people will hopefully like it.
So going back to Lucia, you said you kind of got the idea for the story almost fully fledged in your mind. How did that happen? I mean, was there anything that triggered it? I mean, apart from the sort of doing the standalone book thing, did it just come to you, or
I think it was mostly Wuthering Heights, because it was the idea of this revenge over generations. I never liked Wuthering Heights at all. I thought the people in it were really depressing and horrible to each other. But the idea starting this idea of revenge against a family for so long, and I thought slaves must have been thinking things like that. So that was it, the idea of the slave. And I never knew what time period to set slave in. Obviously, it's got to be a certain time period. The slavery was to that kind of extent. And I thought, well, Romans, how many books are there about female Roman slaves?
Yeah.
Well, as far as I know, there's zero. I don't think there's any.
And it's really interesting from your perspective to write from a purely. I haven't read the book actually. I mean, I've read about the book and I've seen you talk about it, but I haven't read it. So I have to hold my hands up and say that. But I think it's all from her perspective, right? The book.
See what I said about remembered stuff.
Well, she's the protagonist. It's
mainly there's some other scenes.
So it's mainly from her perspective, and I think most of the fiction, most of the novels that you write and the ones that I write as well have predominantly male sort of oriented storylines and lots of battles and
it's action, fighting and drinking beer and round the campfire.
It's an interesting twist, for you to write something that's a different time period, but also from a very sort of different angle than
Yeah.
your previous books.
Well, not just for me. If you say to somebody about a Roman slave story, they're going to think of Spartacus, and it's always about gladiators or something that have escaped, that kind of thing, which is great. I love all that. But this is about a female Roman slave, and as far as I can tell, it's the only book like it out there. It's quite unique. I'm not saying it's any good. It might be absolutely garbage.
I'm sure it's brilliant.
So that's one selling point.
I'm sure it's not rubbish. So what? Well, if anyone's wondering about, I mentioned Wolf of Wessex and said about how that sort of came to me quite quickly as well. I think a few people have pointed out that the guy in it, who's probably, I think Dunstan is probably supposed to be late 40s, really, basically the same sort of age as me. I've just turned 50. Although people probably think he's older, but that's because I've given him lots of aches and pains, because I think a warrior before modern medicine and stuff, I mean, he would be pretty knackered by his late 40s. And I mean, well, I'm pretty knackered now. I mean, to be honest, if I was in the 9th century or when he's alive, when Dunstan was around, I'd be dead, because I had appendicitis 3 years ago. So I would have died. I had a burst appendix. I would have been dead. That's it. So anyway, so basically he's me, he's an idealized version of me, walking through the Wessex countryside with my dog, my dog's half miniature poodle and half border collie. He's got this massive sort of hound that goes around with one eye, called Odin. But basically it's me and Blue wandering around in an idealized form of ourselves. So every time I was walking the dog, I was trying to sort of soak up more and more ideas from the countryside around. So if the dog suddenly ran into a bush and a bird flew out, I'm thinking, right, that goes in the book.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely.
So it's brilliant.
And that was funny as well, because you asked me what I was writing, and it was the Druid at the time, and I said to you, well, it's about this big guy who's trying to rescue a young girl, and he's got a big war dog. And
I know.
You said, well, that's funny, because I'm writing the exact same book.
I know. And I remember thinking people were going to think that we copied each other, or you were going to think I copied you, or it was a weird thing.
Well, they're obviously completely different.
Yeah.
But we were both working on the same thing with the dogs and everything. It was quite strange.
It was funny, yeah. And I think you added an extra dog in, didn't you, in the end?
And the first one, there were 2 dogs.
Okay.
If anybody's not read the Druid, I won't spoil it, but it's pretty obvious why I put 2 in.
Yeah, I won't mention what happens to Odin either. I mentioned in the build up to all this, so about that you've done some other fun stuff, like working. Well, I mentioned about the guitarist and stuff, but you can talk about that in a minute if you want. But you've worked on this game that's coming out. So this is something that I've not done. It's really exciting. So tell us a bit about that.
Well, they emailed me and asked me if I'd be interested in writing for this game, which I thought was really exciting, because I play Xbox games all the time, and to be part of something like that was really amazing. So they paid for us to go down and stay in a hotel in Newcastle. I took the wife. Lovely. And she went shopping the next day and had a great time. And I went to meet them, and they showed me around the game studio.
Oh, those halcyon days when we could actually go out and stay in hotels.
Total freedom. I mean, my wife had the best time of her life down there, because she was in this huge shopping centre, in her glory. And the hotel paid for and everything. And me in this games designer's studio talking to them, and they're showing me all the concept art, which I now see brought to life.
Fantastic.
And they just sent me ideas for what they wanted me to write for characters and locations and stuff like that. And as far as what I can tell from the stuff they've shared, it all seems to be my writing is actually in it.
Brilliant.
So, I mean, I was the only writer for the game as far as I know. And the game looks really, really good. So
that's really good. What's the name of the game?
Hood, Outlaws and Legends.
Hood, Outlaws and Legends. Okay. Yeah. And that's out in a couple of months. Is it sometime in May or something like that?
May the 10th.
Brilliant. Wow.
I think it was out.
And
so
I think
it's been like 2 years.
Yeah, it's out on all platforms. It's like PS4 and all that stuff.
Yeah, both Xboxes and PS4. And I had to sign a non-disclosure agreement, so I couldn't tell anybody about it and this kind of stuff. But I mean, there's things in the game. I'm still not sure what I'm allowed to say.
Yeah. So, well, don't tell us any more. but I mean, there's a trailer online, isn't there, and stuff, and I think people, if they want to, they can go look at the trailers, and it looks a bit
actually in it. Some of the parts you probably be able to tell my writing style if you've read my book, you'll see it. And there's other wee, I don't know what they call them, but there's wee collectibles and stuff in the game that are all wee pieces that I researched and stuff. So the game should be for people like us that like historical fiction. If you also like games, you should get quite a lot out of the game experience.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah, hopefully. And then they'll maybe ask me to write more for a sequel, and I'll be paid again.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed. Yeah, sounds great.
That's what I'm hoping.
Yeah, so it's interesting, sort of doing this writing for other intellectual properties where I'm getting asked to do so, because I've recently I just announced like a week ago or a few days ago, I think last week, that I've written a short story, which is not so short, it's almost like a novella actually, but like a short story for Warhammer 40,000, so Games Workshop gaming world universe, and it's my first sort of incursion into something that isn't historical fiction, so it's science fiction.
Well, it's very similar. It's very similar, though.
It's very similar, apart from like it's all big guns and people sort of flying around in spaceships. You know, apart from that, it's exactly the same. It was.
I thought some of the Warhammer stuff was like swords and stuff.
Yeah, well,
is that a different universe?
So there's two. They've got like, so they said to me, you can either write something in the medieval sort of so they've got like the Dungeons and Dragons style sort of medieval orcs and stuff, or you've got the Warhammer 40,000, which is the empire of mankind in the 41st century, or the 41st millennium. Sorry, not century. So it's hugely futuristic, and it's a very dark, sort of grim, dark universe with all sorts of weird and wonderful aliens and stuff. So for me, it was a huge learning curve, because I've never played the game, and they said, here's like an encyclopedia, basically. They sent me like PDFs of the said, off you go and read some of these and then come up with a storyline. So I was like, okay. It took me ages. It was a huge undertaking to understand what I could and couldn't include, and so it took a lot of toing and froing, but it's been a really exciting time. I'm not even allowed to say, like you, I've signed all these NDAs and stuff, and I said, can I actually announce that I've written this story now? And they said, yes, but don't mention what it's about or the title of the story. So I can't tell you anything more than the fact I've written a story for Warhammer 40,000, and there's some action and things happen, but it was exciting. It's fun. So
it's good to try something different, but which brings us on to your other project, your Serpent Sword TV.
Yeah, so that's been an exciting thing as well. So we're still in a situation with, well, for anyone who doesn't know, anyone's not been following the page, the Serpent Sword page, or my page, or other social media that I'm involved with, my Twitter or whatever. Anyone who doesn't know, the Bernicia Chronicles, the first book, is the Serpent Sword, and we're trying to get it made into a TV series. Basically, that's it. So about, must be a couple of years ago now, a reader, a keen amateur historian, reenactor, reader, guy called James Faulkner, came to me and said, do you own the rights to the TV or film adaptation of the Serpent Sword? And I said, well, yeah, as far as I know, not been sold to anybody, so I'm guessing I own the rights, And we had a bit of a chat, and this is just by a Facebook Messenger, and he said, well, I'd love to sort of talk about the idea of putting together something that's like historically accurate but still sticks close to the books. And I said, oh, that sounds great, and I just honestly thought, this is just a nutter, this is just some nutty guy. So off he goes. I just had a little chat with him on Facebook Messenger, and off he went. And months went by, and I'd forgotten all about it, and then a few months go by, and he comes back and says, well, I've got a few friends together, and they're like sort of some students that are working in film and things, and we set up like a little group on Facebook and said we want to discuss the project. And it still felt a little bit like, okay, nothing really is going to happen here. I don't really know what's what I'm doing. I'm sort of having a chat, and
you don't want to get too excited.
Don't want to get excited, and it's not, this is not like a producer from Hollywood saying here's a million quid, let's make it's just sort of talking about it. So this went on for a bit, but then eventually he reached out to his brother-in-law, who actually is a professional actor and producer, a guy called Jordan Woodley, and then he was working with a small production company called Cinemas, in South Wales, and they got interested in it, and then we talked, and they sort of said, well, we're interested in getting together and putting together like a proof of concept trailer to try to promote this idea for a series, and use that as a stepping stone into speaking to producers, and maybe get some buzz around it and stuff like that. So so that's where it started, and it's been a really exciting experience. And we're at the stage now where we got the proof of concept trailer made with some amazing talent.
Yeah, it looks great. It looks
so. Well, thanks. Yeah, I think anyone who wants to watch it, if you haven't seen it, you can go and look for theserpentsword.com, and you can read about the project and watch this trailer. I mean, it looks great. So the guys from Cinemas did a great job. We hired on a writer to write the screenplay for the trailer, but also for the series. So he's written the first couple of episodes and a breakdown for the whole thing. A writer called Greg Stewart. So he's a great screenwriter. He also writes novels. So if anyone's interested in reading some good sort of horror, I think he does horror fantasy stuff. I haven't read his stuff, so I can't vouch for the stories, but he's a great screenwriter, so I'm pretty sure the novels are probably good too. So yeah, I think he writes under the name Gregory Stewart, but so I'll give him a little plug there, which he hopefully he'll be pleased with. But he's a great screenwriter, and the scripts have been praised by people. We've been speaking to all sorts of production companies, and we're at the stage now where we've got this trailer made, and we've talked to people in the UK, we're talking to people in the States. We had lots of sort of quite well-known actors through lockdown. We were reaching out, speaking to people who've been in big name TV series, and trying to get them on board to sign like a letter of intent that they would be involved in the project. And loads of people, and it's amazing because all these actors were sitting at home doing nothing.
Exactly.
So you'd reach out to lots of like the bigger names. Their agents would sort of say no, they don't want to talk to you. But the ones who are sort of like in big series that you'd recognise them from big series, but probably not the main the main stars or whatever. But proper actors in their right that you'd recognise. They'd sort of say yeah, fine, I'll have a chat, and they'd come on and read the script and have a talk and say yeah, people that acted in Game of Thrones and stuff like that. Big film TV series, and so it's really really exciting. And then. So we've got an agent in the States now, and we're in the stage where we're hoping to pitch to production companies and to TV distributors and Netflix and all of those sort of people. But the industry's been totally clobbered by the pandemic. So we hope we could have been in a different place now if it hadn't been for the pandemic. But really, everything's been put on hold for the last 6 months.
It's such a shame for you that happened last year when everything was starting to get going.
We literally filmed the last day of shoot. So it was 8 days of filming to film this to film the trailer.
Did you show you? 8 days just to film
8 days for 3. I think there's 3 minutes on you end up on film. But there was something like 8 hours of footage filmed. That's crazy to edit it down. And so, but I mean, that just goes to show the amount of work that went into it, and the amount of effort. Professional sound design which was done by Helen Faulkner, who's actually James Faulkner's sister, who works for Bang Studios, which is a professional sound design company in South Wales. So we had loads of all the actors are professional actors, but they gave their work for free. The costume design, everything, professional composers. I mean, it was fantastic. And we literally the guys filmed the last day of the filming. The day before, it was the Saturday before the lockdown. The lockdown was on the Monday, and they filmed it on the Saturday before. I think maybe the Saturday and the Sunday. I mean, it was literally like the day before lockdown. But then the next few months they spent doing the sound design and the editing and all of that. And then of course we had lots of meetings with people over the summer. But then nobody's buying anything in the studios. It's just everything's shut down really. So things are beginning.
So you have to wait until the lockdown's over even just to start filming them.
Absolutely. So now we're kind of just waiting for things to open up and see what happens. But fingers crossed.
Sorry, I put this on because I'm absolutely freezing.
That's all right.
The heating's off. It's not because I'm a tight Scotsman. It's because my son's in the bedroom upstairs going to sleep, and if the heating's on, he won't go to sleep. So I have to put this on because I'm freezing. You can hear I've got a cold as well. So I was going to ask you. I think in a few minutes we'll open the floor to questions. I think people have probably been posting some questions. I'll have a look in a minute at the questions and start. You're assuming people are still there.
Yeah, well, I can see some movement. So some people are sort of are posting things. So I'll go through it in a minute. But just going to ask you before we get to the questions. And if anyone's got any questions, post them now, and I'll try and get through as many as we can. But I was just going to say, you're writing the sequel to, or the next one in the series of the Warrior Druid series. Have you got any plans after that? What's happening after that?
Well, it's a short answer then, because no, that's it. I don't really see the Druid series ending anytime soon, because I keep coming up with all these other ideas. There's obviously not really an end to what happened.
Yeah.
The Saxon invasion of Britain. I know we won't go into that, whether they actually invaded or not.
Well, no, but
they didn't really. We know that now that they didn't. It wasn't quite.
It wasn't like a huge thousands of people taking over the whole country.
Big battles constantly. But I mean, for the sake of writing a book, you have to have it something like that. But like I said, there's not really an end to it. It just kind of all fizzled out, and they just came, and that was it. Everything just went to normal. But so there's so much to write until we get to that stage. I've not thought of any kind of end for Bell, because he's a young guy. But I'll probably write another Forest novella.
Okay, you're going to write a novella and then go back to write more of the Druid books.
People seem to quite like it. I mean, they don't sell much because I put them out at Christmas, and I love Christmas, so I can't avoid putting in bits of Christmas, like even snow on the cover and stuff like that, which obviously doesn't sell in summer. But I just love it so much that I just like writing stories of it at that time period and stuff. So I'll probably do another one if I can find something strange enough, interesting enough for Tuck and John and probably Scarlett now to investigate.
That's cool. So you mentioned that I gave you some inspiration around Lucia, to go off and think about writing a standalone novel. But I've only written one novella, but that was Kin of Cain, which again was basically inspired by you. And this was years ago, so it must have been you only probably had a couple of novellas out at the time.
7 years ago, I think. I wrote Night of the Cross.
So Night of the Cross, and I think was that your first or second novella, or?
No, that was the first.
The first one, right? So that's right. So I read that and I really enjoyed it. And I thought, this is a great thing. You could write something that's punchy, exciting. It had loads of action, and it was really good fun. I really enjoyed it. And it's not like I didn't enjoy the novels, but I just liked the fact that it was. I really struggle to find time to read now, because I think once you're writing, you're either reading research or you're writing, or you're tired. And then you kind of can't read. So I don't read as much as I'd like, and the idea that I could sit down and in a couple of hours or a few hours just read this whole story. And so I did Kin of Cain, and I really enjoyed the process, because again, it just flowed. I had the idea, boom, and it just started flowing, and within, I don't know, maybe a month or 5 weeks or something, I'd written this thing, which is a lot faster than it takes me to write a whole novel. And again, like you say, that it's sold terribly. It doesn't sell at all. It doesn't sell. And so I look back and I sort of think, God, this is great. And it's one of my favorite stories that I've written, but it doesn't sell.
I did read that one as well.
It sold nothing in comparison to the novels. So I kind of would like to write more novellas, but you feel like, it's still time and effort to do it. So,
well, I mean, you probably get some people saying, well, if that's your art, you should do it. But it's also a job. So if nobody's buying it, you think, well, what's the point writing it if nobody's enjoying it enough to buy it? But
absolutely, I think it gets good reviews. I just think people prefer a full-length novel.
Yeah, totally agree. That 100,000 words seems to be what people a full-length novel. But that was another weird book because it had H.P. Lovecraft style.
Yes, and I love that. I love the fact that it was a bit and I sort of went a little bit fantasy with mine, even though it's definitely based in historical fiction. It's not fantasy, but I got the sort of overtones of horror and fantasy in there, because I like that sort of genre bending thing that you'd done with, because I really like H.P. Lovecraft as well. I used to do lots of role playing, like tabletop RPGs when I was a kid, and I played Call of Cthulhu, and I used to read all the H.P. Lovecraft books and stuff, and so I really got loads of the feel behind the storyline, and I loved it. It's really good. So I'm going to have a look at some of these questions. Let me see. There's quite a lot of posts here. So someone says that Stephen has a big war dog at home now. Yeah, I'm not sure that your dog is a war dog, but yes,
I would love
okay.
to show you it. I would love to show you the dog, but it's upstairs, and if I bring it down, it just spends its entire time trying to eat my fingers when I'm holding it.
Well,
Until she falls asleep.
someone's become, so Ray Meeker has become my favorite reader of all time, because he said he thought I was in my late 30s.
All right, yeah.
Oh, great. Someone says I should get Paul Fraser Collard on to have a chat. Well, maybe one day. So Margaret Skay has asked about what's involved in writing a game. I think you've answered lots of that.
Well, I can't really say too much about it, but
yeah,
I mean, I can't take much credit for any of the stuff in it, because the game designers would send me, we want this. This is what the map looks like. So write something for it, and I would just basically write a short story about what the map was and the things that were in it.
okay, so here's a question that gets asked a lot. Who would be your dream casts for your various heroes? And then they said, and why is it Jensen Ackles? I don't even know who Jensen Ackles is, but obviously they think Glenn Longwell thinks that Jensen Ackles would be the one, but I don't know who that is. Have you given any thought to casting for characters?
There used to be a website that somebody put on, or what they would want for the Forest Logbooks actors, and you could go on and put your own on. But to be honest, I don't really watch all that much TV, so I don't really keep up with who the modern actors are. Obviously, with being bald myself, I like Jason Statham.
Yes, you mentioned this before.
I would have him in just about anything. I love Statham, or The Rock maybe, but I don't know how good the likes of The Rock would be in one of my books, because they're all British. You would have to put on an accent. Although they never used accents quite like ours, especially not mine. You know what I mean? But I can't really answer that, because I don't really know that many actors or actresses.
Yeah, and well, I can say from the TV, from the work on the TV series, we did put out casting calls for actors. Obviously, we weren't paying anything, so but we did go through the whole process of auditioning, and I'm really happy with the actors that we got. You know, we got some fantastic actors, some of whom are working in in TV series and films that are out at the moment. So it's not, these weren't just amateur actors; these are professional actors, and it was. But the discussion. The discussions we had about casting was amazing. We had a group we've got a group of 6 people, and we were discussing for days. Some of them it was easy, and you sort of say, yeah, they're fine, they will do that, for this role. But when you came to the lead for Bear Brands, we had a couple of guys, and we had like 3 people that we were really interested in, and we got them. It was great. The experience was amazing, because you get them to send you a video of them reading a few lines of script, and we whittled it down to these 3 that we were really interested in, but we had, I don't know, 15 people or something. We're sending all these videotapes in, and self tapes, and we ended up getting one guy who lived too far away to come down in person, so we did a video chat with him, and we couldn't afford to bring him down, and it's not like we could afford to put him up a hotel and come and visit, so we had a video chat with him, and he was great. And then we got another couple of guys that were more local, and we got them in to the offices and where cinemas is in South Wales, and interviewed them in person, and then they did some, and then I think eventually they did some sort of camera work as well to check, and in the end both of those guys are in it. So Bear Brand, the guy who plays Bear Brand, Liam Hatch, was great, and the other guy was Aaron May, and he actually plays the part of the monk in the trailer. So we liked him so much, we didn't want to get rid of him. So we said, you really want him involved. So he actually does lots of the voiceover in the trailer, and he's got a great voice, and he did a really good. He's a great actor, but his voice was just brilliant for it. So, and all the actors are great in it. So I mean, it was just a great experience. But you can see how difficult it would be to do the casting, and everybody's got an opinion.
And they start off young in the book.
Yes. Well, this is one of the biggest things. This is one of the difficult things, is trying to find, the right actor, the right age, and so if it does become a thing, it's possible that we'll potentially carry forward some of the actors from the proof of concept, or we'll get new actors in. Who knows? But potentially you need to get someone quite young that can grow into the role, or that can play young at least and then grow into the role. So people are asking to see the puppy, but we've already answered that.
Well, I can maybe bring her down when we're finishing.
Yeah, when we're finished.
I don't want to bring her down now because she'll just run around crazy.
People are asking about here talking about Wales. Would be great if actually filmed it up here in Duntocka. Is that
Duntocka?
So is that
the road from
is that where one of your books is set, somewhere around there? Is that where the Druid stuff takes place?
Well, yeah, it's basically beside Dumbarton.
Okay.
So yeah, the Druid rides through Duntocka at one point.
Mark Baker calls you Stephen, the King of Novellas. Nicola Foe says that she loves both her writing and she's read all of your books in the past year, and we've kept her going, so that's good through the pandemic. Okay, Ray Collins asks, how much has the writing expanded your guitar collection, Stephen?
Well, I don't know. I don't know if my wife's watching. Put it this way, I've got about 300 or 400.
Okay. Yeah, like all the guitarists I know, they have a lot more guitars than they can ever play.
Well, I don't even know how many I've got. About a dozen. But I tend to sell ones and buy other ones in.
Yeah. So if anyone doesn't know, I mean, Stephen used to play in bands, and he still plays guitar and sometimes record stuff. I used to sing.
Anything very serious. I wasn't in a band kind of like you, where you were gigging constantly over the years around. But I just like to mess about with guitars. It's the one hobby I've had my whole life. I
was always amazed by the fact that all the guitarists in the bands that I've been with, especially the later band, where the guys were, in their 30s or 40s, they've got money. They were buying guitars like every 3 or 4 weeks. They'd come in with a new guitar. You
maybe had a few beers and you're sitting on your own in the living room. Everybody's in bed, and you're going, "Oh, well, eBay's just on my phone, so I'll just have a wee look," and then you find something before you know it. You wake up in the morning, you've got another guitar on the way.
It's like, oh, it's a signature so-and-so from such and such a band. It's like, wow, this is amazing.
Always wanted one of those.
And then they'd use it for like one gig and then say, oh, I don't like the sound, and sell it again or whatever.
Yeah.
So Matt Bickinson is on watching, and he was one of the guys who helped us with the filming. Is a reenactor, and he lent us all of the weaponry, or pretty much, I think, all of the weapons that were used in the fight scenes, and some of the shields and things. He was great, and he got some of the guys from reenactment groups to help us when we filmed a day in Oxfordshire. And he says he had a great laugh filming, so that's great. It was fantastic. I mean, everyone was like that. They were so helpful and just threw themselves into to every situation to help out the goodness of their heart. Really, it's brilliant. Michael Anthony asks if we've got any Dark Ages history books that we'd recommend.
Oh, I'm not in my study to look.
So I can think of a couple. I would say I've got I think it's called The Anglo-Saxon World by someone, Anthony. I think it's Anthony Hyam or someone Hyam. Anyway, there's a couple of writers. I can't remember both writers. I've got books behind me, but this isn't actually where I write. These are just this is like the novels and stuff. These are downstairs. I write upstairs, and all of my research books are up there. So again, like you, I can't turn around and just look at the.
There's 500 AD. I don't remember who wrote it.
Okay.
That's a kind of, it's like a travel guide.
Yeah.
From somebody that's coming from Rome, I think he comes.
Yeah, I think I've read that as well. I think I've got it as well.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I'll find out later and I'll maybe post.
We can, because afterwards this video will be on Facebook, so we can both go in and comment on these posts as well. So any questions that we don't manage to answer properly, we can go back in, and that would be great. We can reply to them and give some names of books. I'm trying to think. So all my stuff is very much Anglo-Saxon related. So I think the Anglo-Saxon Britain by Sir Frank Stenton, which is like the sort of granddaddy of Anglo-Saxon books. It was like written in the 1940s. That's fantastic. And I use I've got an Ordnance Survey map of Dark Ages
I've got
Britain,
a couple of those,
which is really good.
The Dark Ages, but even before that, I think.
They're really useful. Yeah, they're really good.
Well, there's also the Mead Hall book. I know you've got that one as well.
Which one?
The Mead Hall.
Oh, the mead hall. Yes, yes. Oh,
Sorry,
struggling
man.
with your
I know because I've got this cold. It's getting blocked
oh,
up.
I was struggling with your accent. You know, I need an interpreter. You say something like mead hall. I don't know. I was like, is he speaking in a funny dialect? I don't know what he's saying.
What's he saying
What's this
there?
guy saying?
It's like Billy Connolly putting on an accent there.
Right. Right. Oh, by the way, well done at the rugby game yesterday. I don't know if you follow rugby, but
I don't follow.
Scotland played a storming match, and because of beating France, Wales won the Six Nations. So it's fantastic.
All right, good. Brilliant. Yeah, well done, Scotland.
Yeah, well done, Scotland. They beat France in Paris for the first time since 1999.
Right.
Literally in the last second of the game. Brilliant.
No, fantastic. I don't follow rugby.
Anyway, it was great. You should watch it just for that. Find it and watch. Okay, what was the first book both of you read? Andrew Maxwell asks. He says, I got the bug from Danny Champion, Champion of the World, and reading Roald Dahl with my 10-year-old daughter on Matilda at the moment. Okay. So
that's
can you remember
actually, that was one of the first books I read as well, Danny the Champion. I love that book. And the movie with Jeremy Irons as well. Okay. I'm sure I was probably crying at that. That's one of those ones. It's an excellent book. So that might have been one of the very first ones I read as well.
I think the first one I read was the first one I remember reading myself was The Hobbit, I think, by J.R.R. Tolkien. I think it's probably around 11 years old or something. That's probably the first novel that I read. That's the first one I can remember reading, like 10 or 11.
Yeah, I read that, but I was a lot older when I read that.
But I didn't read a lot, really.
I used to love the Hardy Boys.
Okay. I read lots of comics. I was really into comics in my
I like Batman and stuff. The Hardy Boys and like the Twits and stuff like that. I used to like.
All right, yeah.
I'm sure I read the Sherlock Holmes books when I was very young. Danny the Champion of the World's a really good one, actually. Roald Dahl's brilliant.
Yeah. Other books that have had a great influence on me was from maybe a couple of years later, was when I was really into playing Dungeons and Dragons, and I was really into fantasy, and the David Gemmell Legend was an amazing book, and that's had huge influence on me. And anyone who's read The Wolf of Wessex will see the blatant sort of pollination from Druss.
I'm sure actually, does he still call people laddie in the finished draft?
He may do. He may call someone lassie. I think he calls the girl lassie. I think I changed it just once as a little nod.
Druss is definitely a Scotsman, isn't
he? Yeah, definitely.
Laddie.
Apparently, just if we're going to talk about David Gemmell, apparently David Gemmell pronounced him Druss.
Druss.
So he sort of sounds more Scottish as well, but it sounds weird to me. I've always thought of him as Druss.
It's not a Glaswegian accent.
Druss.
That's more East Coast.
So Glenn Longwell has asked, what are your thoughts on a narrator that interacts with the reader throughout the book? Don't really understand the question.
I remember Glenn well. Hi, Glenn. He used to do a podcast and he interviewed me a couple of times on it.
Okay.
A narrator that interacts with
the reader throughout the book. I don't really understand. Like they sort of, I don't know, they ask questions of the reader, or they sort of speak directly to you.
Is that an audio book?
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know, or maybe not. I don't know.
I don't know. It reminds me of the program Nightmare.
I don't understand the question, Glenn. If you're still there, post another question, and we'll follow up and try to explain what you mean. Because I think we're struggling. What is your so this is from Gary Sayer. He says, what is your reason why for writing books? When did you realize you could do it well and make money from doing it?
Well, I realized I could do it well, if that's fair to say, because I never, you'll be the same. You don't actually read it and think, well, I'm great at this. This is brilliant. Well, everybody's going to
speak for yourself. I think I'm amazing.
That's you drunk now.
That's right. Yeah, had half a beer.
And the 7 you had before it. But no, it's definitely when the reviews come in. You put the book out, you're terrified, your first book, you put it out and you're terrified, and then the reviews start to come in and you think, well, people actually like this. And it's kind of the same process for every book after that, because everyone you put out, you're terrified again. And then the reviews come in and you've maybe get 10 reviews that says they enjoyed it, and you're sitting going, oh, thank God for that, it's actually all right.
Yeah.
And then you go buy it. So at that stage, you start to realise, oh, maybe I could make a living from this. I mean, I do still work 3 days a week at the day job. I could probably quit on the money I earn from the books because I do really well now. But I'm still in that mindset. I'm a working class guy that, you know,
Well,
to go away would be.
I totally get it. I mean, we've both got families and, bills to pay and stuff. And to be perfectly honest, I don't know. I mean, I'd managed to get my day job down to 3 days a week, and I was, it was fine. And I don't know if I would have taken the plunge. I mean, it was always my plan to become a full-time writer. I thought this would be great. It wasn't always my plan. It was my plan from when I got the first couple of books out and things were going well, to sort of respond to the question. I'm very similar to you. The first book, I had no idea if it was going to sell, but then it starts selling a few hundred, a few thousand, and you're getting good positive reviews, and you get a few one-star reviews, but most of them are positive, and and people buy the second book, and you start thinking, well, maybe I could make money out of this, and then money starts coming in, and obviously each book you start hopefully building your readership a bit more. But I at that point I started thinking, well, it'd be great to become a full-time writer, but I never really 100% thought it was going to happen. But I sort of got to this point, this balance where you're at, where I had a couple of days a week that I could write full-time, and the rest 3 days a week I was working, and that was quite nice. But then they laid off my whole team. So basically I was working for a big company, and they just laid off everybody in the UK that was working with me in this department. So I was in a situation, I'd been working there for 18 years, I got made redundant, and I'm thinking, well, this is kind of exactly what I wanted to happen, so I couldn't. I mean, I'm getting told getting made redundant. Really sorry, and I'm thinking, yes, this is amazing. This is this is so good. So I'm probably the only one of the few people that's being happy to be made redundant. But
if you had said to your wife 2 weeks before that, I've had enough of this, I'm going to quit and I'm just going to write, she'd probably said, don't be an idiot. Your sick pay, your pension. Which is exactly what my wife says. There's been a few times I've said, I'm fed up with this job, but I really, get in and out of people's houses and COVID, and but she says, well, no, you've got sick pay and stuff, and it does make sense, and I actually do miss it just now, physically, even just stiffening up a bit. So it did actually probably work out well for you. It was forced on you, but it's worked out well.
Well, the thing is, I mean, it was forced on me, and it was a great situation because I've been working there for 18 years. So they had to pay us off because we were made redundant. So I had this buffer that I could sort of say to myself, look, take a year. And I sort of, had a conversation with my wife. I said, look, take a year. We've got this sort of buffer of money that we got paid out. And I say, well, let's see how it goes. And I mean, luckily it's going well. So I just thought, brilliant. That's it. I'm in. That's it. Full-time writer. But it's a very difficult decision to make when you've got a full-time job and even a part-time job, and like you say, sick pay and stability and all this. It's a very difficult decision.
Years in it, same as you almost.
It's a hard decision to take, but I think it can pay out. But I mean, in answer to the question, really, you've got to write a book, put it out there, and just see what happens. And I think you never really know until that
other people tell you, basically. The people that's not your family or whatever. But...
And people will tell you, you'll get lots of rejections along the way. So I know that both of us, tried and had agents, or both of us have had agents, and both of us have gone through the process of getting an agent, and it's painful, and then trying to get publishers, and that's painful as well, and then stopping working with agents, and so you get lots of rejections, and you just got to keep believing in yourself at some point and just keep going. But it's
Wolf said was rejected, and the Druid was rejected even once I get an agent, so they've done all right.
It's I mean, the whole thing of agents is a whole nother conversation that we could probably go on about, but I won't now. So Greg Stewart's actually watching. So Greg, I mentioned it before, the screenwriter and novelist, Greg Stewart, and he said, can we form a band and call it the Wolfheads? And
I like that, because I've got a guitar that has Wolfhead on it.
Well, there you go. And I actually think that Greg's got a book. I think his book's called The Wolfhead or something. So you probably.
I remember him now.
But it's nothing to do. But it's nothing to do with Robin Hood. I think it's something totally different. So it's interesting. And he also asks, do we listen to music while we're writing? And if so, what do we listen to? So this is an interesting question. So you first.
Well, I listen to black metal, which is nothing like Metallica. It's really just guys screaming. So there's, if you imagine Metallica speeded up times 10, it's like that. Screaming, super fast drums, no melody, and it's called black metal, but it's basically white noise. So
Well,
it's not even really music to most people. They would just, like my wife would come in and go, "What are you listening to? What is that?" But it helps me get into a wee zone, you know, zone out. It's just like a noise, basically, that if I put on Metallica, AC/DC or something, my foot would be tapping, I'd be singing it in my head, I'd want to pick up the guitar and play it. So I listen to bands like Enslaved and Battery, just on the old school black metal bands. It's just a noise, really, to zone out.
that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, incidentally, I mean, Greg, I know, plays drums in a
Right.
band as well. So I've not seen him play or heard him play, but I know he plays drums and has played for a
Well,
long
if he
time.
does the
So
blast beats, he'll know
so well,
what I'm talking about.
I don't know if he could play black metal speeds, but I mean, you know, you play guitar, I sing, he plays drums. I mean, we've almost got a band there, right? We just need a
There we
bass
go.
player, and that's
You
it.
sound it,
So but yeah, I do listen to music. Sometimes I listen to things like Wardruna, or I don't know how you pronounce
yeah,
it,
I've heard
Wardruna.
it,
So there's sort of Nordic
yeah, yeah.
ambient stuff. When I listen to that quite a bit. So there's not really vocals that I can understand. It's sort of chanting and sort of ambient sounds and things. I can't listen to anything with vocals. I'll listen to things with vocals if I'm writing like something for an article or something. I don't need to I don't need to get into the zone. I can listen to, you know, I'll listen to Led Zeppelin or something, or Queen or something with lyrics. But otherwise it puts me off. I also listen to like soundtracks, so I'll find like, you know, Lord of the Rings soundtrack and things like that. So it's big orchestral sort of music. And I also sometimes find like ambient sort of sounds. So at the moment, I'm writing a sequel for A Time for Swords, and there's lots of ship stuff. They're on a Viking ship crossing the North Sea, and I'll spend, I don't know, 5 hours writing, listening on YouTube to some ambient sound of waves and rain and creaking wood, and he just gets in the zone, like you say. The world closes around you, and then after a while, I take the headphones off, and I'm like, oh wow, this is this is
Then
weird.
you go away out and speak to your wife like a pirate.
Yeah, yeah. That's how I always speak to my wife. Anyway. So Cindy Fox has asked, have you ever considered writing something about Spain? So I know Cindy from years and years ago when I lived in Spain as a kid. My parents were working there, and Cindy was working there as well. Friends of my parents and friends of me. And the short answer is yes. I have considered it, but I haven't done more than consider it yet. But I sort of had an inkling that I could write something about the Moorish invasions and the conquest of Spain, really, over hundreds of years by the Moors, and all of that, the Reconquista and the El Cid, you know, fighting against the Moors and all that. I had an idea of using some of that in almost like a fantasy storyline, making it sort of maybe taking the whole of Spain, but like displacing it into like a fantasy setting. But I'm not going to go into the details. But but actually, probably in A Time for Swords, the series, at some point, because it's the first. Well, they're basically, as I just mentioned, they're in a ship now, and so there's going to be a moment when Hunlaf travels around Europe and the known world, and so he could quite easily, in fact, I think, you know, in A Time for Swords, I think there's a mention to the fact that at some point he's been in the south of Spain in the court of whatever the name of the person is who was running Cordoba or something. So at some point they will go to Spain, but I don't know how much of the story is going to be set there, but it will be something. So Dillis, or Dulles, I'm never sure of pronunciations. Guthrie asks, would either of you write a book with another author in partnership? So what do you reckon?
I don't know. I see Gordon Dockery's done it with Simon.
Yeah.
I don't know how it would work. I've absolutely no idea.
They've done so I've read the first book of their series, and they've done, it's two conflicting emperors basically, or vying for the you know, for power in Rome, and they both wrote, so they alternate the characters, and each of them took one character, and then obviously worked out the storyline, but they wrote one chapter each. So they take, so one of them is Maxentius and the other one is Constantine.
That's a good idea.
So it could work. So yeah, so thanks. We'll take that on board, and we'll write something next week. I do keep thinking that, you know, we both write in dark ages, and there's a few other writers like Giles Christian, Justin Hill. There's probably lots of others that I'm forgetting that are writing sort of dark ages stuff. And I do wonder whether at some point
the Blessed Bernard.
Yeah, Bernard Cornwell. Obviously, you know, we should get Bernie in, as I call him. I've never met Bernard Cornwell, so sorry about that. But yeah, so we got all these different writers that are writing dark ages or early medieval stuff, and there's no reason why we couldn't all get together and write like one of these anthologies of short stories that people keep
I read the one that Ben
out.
Kane did, A Day of Fire, and it was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, so that's, I do keep thinking that there's a scope there for something.
That was a collection of short stories. I don't know how.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would want to do a whole book, a whole novel with.
No, I think short stories would make sense. I'd be down for that.
Yeah.
Someone's asking. Christopher Godfrey's asking, how's the dragon head going down?
Yeah, still got half left. It's actually quite dark. It's quite heavy.
Okay. So Nate Hollyoak is asking, do we have a link to buy your books? Well, I'm sure that afterwards Steve will dump one on there. But what's your website? You can.
Let's do StevenAMcKay.com.
StevenAMcKay.com. So there you go.
Yep.
Seeing about more questions here, because Mark Baker says you could sit down in the pub with a beer and listen to your accents all day. This coming from an Aussie in Down Under.
Is that me or you?
Both of us, I think. It's in plural accents. So, you know, he's got the English and the Scottish together. So
funny, other people seem to really like the Scottish accent, whereas to me, my accent just sounds scruffy.
Ray Collins says none of us know how many guitars we own, or at least we do not admit it.
We don't admit it, exactly. That's right.
Okay, Andrew Maxwell is asking, what is your favourite author apart from each other?
Well, I think it's better with Cornwell, really. Mostly. That's why I called him the Blessed Bernard. That wasn't like a trying to be funny or anything, you know. He is kind of this patron saint of historical fiction.
It is. I love Bernard Cornwell. If anyone could see, you could probably see on the shelf there. There's actually lots of Bernard Cornwell books somewhere up there. But I love Connie Gulden as well, and actually reading. I know you are as well, so we can give you a quick plug. We're both reading. Got this one.
Yep.
So this is Protector, his latest book. This is an art, but it's a beautiful looking thing, and he's fantastic. I mentioned before David Gemmell. He's a favourite.
Yeah, I love him as well.
And I have to say, I was very saddened by the news. I think it was just yesterday that Larry McMurtry was one of my all-time favourite novelists. Just died, and he was the author of Lonesome Dove.
Yeah, I remember you saying that before. You know, I like the cowboy stuff, don't you?
Oh, I absolutely love it. It's fantastic. He won the Pulitzer Prize with Lonesome Dove, and the mini series of it is incredible. It was made like in the late 80s, but it's got Robert Duvall, Danny Glover, Jennifer Houston. Anyway, Tommy Lee Jones is in it as well. I mean, it's amazing. It's like the cast are incredible. The acting's incredible. The storyline, it's just brilliant. If you only read one Western novel in your whole life, read that one. He won a Pulitzer Prize for that. He won an Oscar for Best Adapted Screenplay for Brokeback Mountain. I mean, the guy was incredibly talented. He wrote films based on his books back in the early 60s and 50s and stuff. I mean, he was writing for a long time. But yeah, very sad day. So Larry McMurtry, one of my favorite writers.
Tolkien, I think.
Tolkien as well. Yeah.
Ratchet.
So what more have we got here? Lots of stuff about the books that said about Mead Hall. Andrew Maxwell understood you. Mead Hall. I understood him eventually. I just had to sort of translate.
Am I saying this blog? Sorry.
So just seeing if there's any sort of questions outside of what we've sort of talked about already. Bear with me, scrolling down through all this. So obviously the questions are behind where we are now because I'm reading stuff about the Hardy Boys and stuff. So trying to catch up. Okay, so Glenn Longwell followed on the question that we didn't understand before, and he says, so like the narrator would say a character doesn't want to share something, then the character shares it, and the narrator kind of badmouths the character to the reader. Or after a long bit of dialogue from one character, the narrator says how long-winded that character is being. So basically, I think he's asking is what do we think about the idea of a narrator kind of coming out of character to almost speak directly to the reader and say like, oh God, this guy, then he waffled on and what a pain in the arse he was, you know. But I suppose there's quite a few books that are actually written like that, or more contemporary books, I suppose, where the narrator's almost like speaking to the audience.
Is Catch-22 not like that?
Mm.
I started reading it and I never liked it, but I'm sure there's, my mum's read it and she's mentioned stuff where he talks about telephones and stuff.
Yeah, I think to a certain extent, I mean, the A Time for Swords is the only book that I've written that's first person.
Yeah.
So he's writing it as an old man, and there are a few times in there that he does like asides and sort of says, you know, I remember this thing and this happened, or I've never been so upset in my life as when this happened, or whatever. I don't know, I can't remember the exact moments, but he sort of comments on what's happening a little bit, you know, steps out of the story, not too much. Partly because my editor sort of got fed up with it and told me to stop doing it, I think. But
it sounds like a kind of Terry Pratchett thing to me.
Yeah.
I can imagine that being quite comedic if you knew how to do it.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think you could. So Michael Kimmins asks, have either of you ever written a plot and then later regretted it because you thought of something better afterwards, but you couldn't tie it in?
No, because anything I write basically stays.
It's the same with me.
I never redo stuff, and I don't really think to myself I could have done that better. I better change it.
I think I'm the same. So I think I've probably deleted, you know, hundreds of words over the time of writing. I'm on my 11th novel now, and I think I maybe have deleted, you know, 1,000 words or something,
which is nothing.
Which is nothing. Like over 1 million words written, I've probably deleted a couple of thousand, maybe, you know, just in bits and pieces. But normally it's just a line here, a line there. It's not whole chapters. And I think it was very much in the early book. I think the very first book in The Serpent Sword, I remember writing a scene or writing a whole chapter, and then later thinking, oh, it doesn't quite work, and kind of deleting it and starting again. But hardly anything, and not whole plot lines, because by the time you put in that much effort to write them and think about them, later on I think I do regret killing certain characters. So that's the only thing in the ongoing series, and I'm not going to say who in case people haven't read the books, but there's certain characters that have died and I've thought, oh, you shouldn't have killed them, because if you hadn't killed them, you've got that great character that you can bring back as a continuing character, you know, throughout other storylines where they'd fit in well, you know, into other storylines, but you killed them. So that's where you haven't got fantasy, you can't bring them back.
No, it sounds like if you're arguing with somebody in real life and like 3 hours later you're in the house going, I should have said this and I should have said that.
Yeah.
But writing a book's different. You can go back and change it if you need to. No, I've never. I'm too lazy to go back and change too much.
James Vella Barden asks, any tips for new historical adventure novelists starting out?
Well, I don't think James needs any, since he's a published author himself.
Well, there you go. So no.
No, I don't either. No, I don't.
Maybe he's asking for other people.
Yeah, he must be, because I'm sure his book, The Sheriff's Catch, is a good one. I'm quite sure of that. No, but my only tip is just to enjoy it. Just write something that you enjoy, write a book that you want to write, and it should be fun. At the end of the day, if you're not enjoying it, nobody's going to enjoy reading it. So just write something fun and have fun while you're writing it.
Yeah, my take would just be just keep writing. Yeah, don't give up on yourself. Just keep going, keep making it better, keep writing, and get it out there. Don't throw stuff away and publish it. Because I find the number of people that say, oh, I wrote 6 novels before I published my first novel because I didn't trust because an agent rejected the first one, and so I threw it away and started writing another one. And then say, come on, man, you spent 2 years of your life writing this book and you just throw it away. Self-publish it. If nobody wants to publish it, self-publish it and then move on.
That's the thing. A lot of people, you write your first book and it's like, this is the end of the world because you've written a book. But how many have you written now, Matthew?
I'm writing my 11th, I think it is
How
now.
many exactly? How many have I written? A novel is probably about 7 or 8. You know, your first book at the
That's
time.
because you've written so many novellas. You know,
I've lost count. But at the time, your first book is the be all and end all, and it's so important. And then after you've written 4 or 5, 10, you come to realise actually it wasn't really that important. Just get it out there and move on to the next one.
Okay, so I don't know how long we want to go on with this, and there's still more questions from me. Are you happy to go for a few more minutes?
Yeah, on you go.
Yeah. So Lauren Boudel, or Boodle, or I don't know how you pronounce your surname, but I think we've met. Actually, I think Lauren turned up at the Oxford filming for The Serpent's Sword. I think she saw her online. I think it's her, but anyway, I may be wrong.
I recognise the name anyway. Thanks,
yeah,
everybody. I recognise all your names. Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks for everybody for coming along. It's great. I mean, these things, you know, so you never know how many people are going to turn up, and we're doing it. You know, somebody actually asked about self-promotion and do we find it's, you know, useful, and I think it's you've got to do it. You've got to do some of it.
You have to do it.
But hopefully, you know, it's giving something back, and it's something. It's enjoyment for us as well, right? So we get to talk about ourselves. It's fun. We get to talk about our stuff. So Lauren asks, did you enjoy history at school?
No, because the history they taught us at school, it was like about the Clydebank Blitz, you know, the Germans bombing Clydebank, the Second World War, which at the time I found really boring.
Yeah.
Because I didn't like such recent history. I wanted stuff like the Romans, ancient Greece. I loved all the ancient myths, Egypt, you know. And I used to wonder, why don't they teach us this at school?
It's incredible. I think I learned more history from reading novels and reading like books about Dungeons and Dragons and fantasy and stuff, which is all medieval based. So you'd read around it, you know, you'd sort of think, oh, I want to learn about this, and you often read stuff. Yeah, and you sort of read about weapons and think, oh, I want to find out what's that weapon. You know, there's this strange named Bardiche and Glaive Gizarm or whatever, and you go, what is that? And I'd go and look it up, you know, and then you start reading about medieval knights and things. And you're right. I mean, history at school was terrible. I did O level, so that shows my age. It wasn't GCSEs, it was GCEs. I was doing O levels, and I did O level history, and I failed O level history, and I actually failed English literature as well. So I was dreadful. I was a terrible student. I hated school, really. I mean, I loved school. I loved being with my mates and having fun, but I was like the joker, and I'd be taking the piss in class and getting told off, and you know, and it just wasn't right. It wasn't the right time for me. I mean, later on, I ended up, both you and me actually, we've got something in common. Another thing in common, that we both did an open university degree later in life, right, as mature students, and I was late 20s basically. I finished the degree in my early 30s. Took 6 years to do it. I was working full time. And really applied myself, did great, you know, much better than I thought I would have done. If I'd gone into university as a 19-year-old, you know, it would have been dreadful. I just wouldn't have done it. But when I was in my 20s, I thought I want to do this because I'm enjoying what I'm doing, and I can see there's a reason to do it. I've been working for a few years. I thought this maybe is going to help me, you know, get a better job. And you know, I was teaching English in Spain, and I ended up studying a degree in computing and IT, and ended up moving into an IT career for 18 years. So, you know, definitely.
The degree I did in the Open Uni was mostly history.
Yeah.
It was like Roman stuff and things like that. And like you, I thought, oh, this will get me a better job, and it never ever did. I'm still a meter reader.
But you're writing, right? I mean, you wouldn't be writing these novels.
Well, it shows you how to write stuff. So,
yeah,
it was good that with the discipline of how to write. Sit down and have to do it
and research as well. But I mean, also the fact that it was you know, you were learning about history that, you know, that obviously is impacted stuff. But I think, and to be honest, I think lots of the IT stuff, I ended up working as a technical author, so obviously writing to an audience, understanding how to communicate with an audience. I studied all that stuff. And also the technology. I mean, things like tonight, like getting this Facebook Live up and working, you know, through Zoom. I mean, things like that, it becomes sort of second nature because we're working in IT for years. Otherwise, you know, I know some writers would really struggle. They'd be thinking, I don't know how to do it, you know, because things, you get an error message or whatever. And, okay, more questions. Let's see. Have you read any Raymond E. Feist? Yes, I have.
Yes, me too.
And great, the stuff that I've read. I think I only read 1 or 2 books. I read Magician. I think that was his, and that was great.
I read quite a few of his years ago. I really loved Magician, and then a few follow-on ones. I think the last I read was Talon of the Silver Hawk, and I wasn't that keen on if it was that one.
Okay.
The latest one I read anyway, it was an audiobook and I never liked it that much. But yeah, Magician and those ones, early ones, fantastic.
So Mark Baker's a quick question here about can we get the slipcase edition of Wolf of Wessex? So wanting to get it. Well, I'm very sorry, Mark, but it's sold out. So there was a limited edition, and they all sold out. And the very last one, actually, the very last one went to Gordon Doherty, who's doing some auctions for to raise money for a cancer charity, because his wife's sadly been diagnosed, I think, with this rare cancer, and he's raising some money for the charity. And I donated the last one of these slipcase edition books for his auction. It sold for something like £170 or something, absolutely ridiculous. So I'm glad to have been able to raise some money for the charity, but I couldn't believe that. I thought it would go, for a bit because it was, it was rare, but bloody hell, I couldn't believe it. So sorry, none left. But you can contact one of the people they're limited to 50. So that's it. Yeah, look on eBay, but you might be a couple £100. So follow-on question is, are you thinking of bringing out any special editions of your books, Stephen?
No, because there's not really any way for me to do it. Lucia and the hardback is all I can do just now at this stage. I always kind of had plans and hopes to do stuff, but there's just no way to do it.
Well, you could do the slipcase thing, because it's basically a reader contacted me and said that he does the slipcases already for my books, for all the books that he buys in hardback. He creates the slipcases, and so he contacted me and said, "Do you want a slipcase for the Bernicia Chronicles?" And I was like, "Well, what do you mean?" And I can't remember the guy's name now. I'll put it in the thing later. But I think he's a retired guy that does this. Guy called Jeff Wiley, I think his name is, and. Anyway, and he sent me a set of these slipcases for the Bernicia Chronicles, and then when Wolf of Wessex came out as a standalone, I said, we sort of talked, and I thought maybe I think it's his idea. He said, you could do a limited edition, and I designed the sleeve and sent it to him, and he created. I sent him the book, so he got the measurements, and he did the thing, and he charged me the cost for the slipcase, sent me the 50 of them. I slipped the book in there and packaged them up and sold them on. So you could do something like that.
Well, there you go. There's the answer then, I might.
So it was good. So I'll put you in touch with the guy, because it was an exciting sort of thing, and it's a bit of hard work, doing the whole organising the thing.
That would be worth it. I think that'd be really nice.
But it was fun.
Yeah, that sounds good.
So yeah, definitely worth a thought. We can chat offline about that. So James Villa Barden says he's at Sunday Mass and he's pretending to read from a hymn sheet while watching this on his phone.
Oh, I saw his comment. He said he would be. Yeah.
So Barbara Cole said that the slipcase edition is great. Bill Cushley saying thanks. Thank you very much for your time. Absolutely love your work. Langmeyer Lumreek, he then says. So I'm guessing that's in some strange dialect. I don't know what he's talking about there.
Again, I think Coast.
Yeah, Michael Kimmins is saying I killed off one of his favourite characters. Oh, and Lauren says it was them that came to visit when we were at the filming in Oxford. So that was good. The same people are asking the questions now. We're getting lots of Mark Baker talking about history teacher. He had a history teacher that looked like Ned Kelly. Made it more interesting. I don't know if that means he came in. Was Ned Kelly the one who wore the metal armor? Yes, I think if he wore a bucket on his head, it must have been pretty intimidating, I'd have thought. James Villa Barden is being a bit sacrilegious, so I'm going to skip his things. He's not really, but he's saying, please, dear Lord, please grant that this is being recorded. I can just imagine him praying in Sunday Mass.
James, you be careful, or Black Chuck will appear at the church.
Yeah.
He's a big Darkness fan.
Yeah, Black Shark. Yeah, that's true.
That dog does not give a.
Okay, so Linda Root says, after reading all your books, and following your life through your guitars, it's great to hear your voice, and that we work very well together. So that's nice. Thank you very much,
Linda. That's a few years.
I know, yeah. Barbara Cole says very good. Thanks for all the hard work. Thanks, guys. Have to fly. That's Pam Leckie. Thanks for coming. Do you enjoy Mark Baker? Do you enjoy George R.R. Martin's writing? Yes, I've read only one of his books, though, the first of the Game of Thrones books, and I've got them all on the shelf actually up there behind. I've got, my wife bought it for me a couple of years ago. It's like the whole, the whole box set, literally a box. I read the first one and it was engrossing, but I said I can't start the next one because it's going to take over my life. The same with the series.
I read about 5 or 6, I think, in the series, but there was so much violence against children, which probably I wouldn't even have noticed. It was just that certain things that were happening in my life at the time. I had to give up, and I just watched the series on the telly.
It's very interesting on a tangential sort of note, though. That reminds me of sometimes when you get like a 1-star review, and I've had 1-star reviews, people saying there's terrible violence against certain things, or they don't like this, they don't like that. It's very often the reader, not the writer, that's the problem when it comes to a book. Not a problem, but you know what I mean. The person that doesn't gel, it's because it's the wrong moment in your life, or it's you're the wrong person for that book. Because, like you say, I mean, obviously hugely successful, and millions and millions of people love his books. But for whatever reason, you pick up that book that day, that year, and it just doesn't work.
Like 5 before that. I think I have 4 or 5 before it, and I'd loved them.
Yeah.
And then I just couldn't read anymore.
And I think sometimes you pick up a book that you hated, 1 year, maybe pick it up 10 years later and love it. So
it's June. I hated June.
Okay.
First time I read it, and I loved it ever since. I read it after.
So we're coming to the end of the questions here. So we've sort of caught up to the end of the questions. So I think we're going to wrap it up in a minute. We've been nearly an hour and a half. So I think it's probably about time. I need to go for another beer. So how did you find artists for your covers is a question. And that's the last question, I think. So we'll wrap it up after that. So how did you find?
I can answer for both of us. Matthew did it himself because he's just that clever.
Well, that was the first couple. Yeah, I did the first covers, and now they're all done by the publishers. So the publisher, they're doing a great job, and they used some of the photos that I'd commissioned photos of original gear by a guy. Well, the gear was owned by a guy called Matt Bunker, who's been incredibly helpful and become a friend. He might be, although he's probably not.
He's related to the old Jethro Tull drummer, which makes him a star in my eyes.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
The original Jethro Tull drummer was Clive Bunker.
I didn't know.
I'm sure he's Matt's uncle.
Oh, amazing. Well, Matt's a lovely guy, and he's been really, really helpful, not only in doing the photos for the first couple of covers, and just in general helping me out with the history. I mean, he knows so much about the period that I write about. He's a part of a group called Wolf Hedenas, and he then later on, when we came to the filming, he helped us basically as a historical advisor. He lent us all of his gear. He drove for a couple of hours to the place that we were filming, which he actually let us film in as well. So the House of Wessex is a reconstructed 7th century hall that Wolf Hedenas is in charge of. It's been built by a charity called Silver, and it's on a site of a 7th century hall that's archaeologically, they found the archaeology, they found that there. They've done some surveys, and then they've built this historically accurate hall on top, and they let us film there. So all the interiors, a couple of the exteriors for the Serpent Sword Trader are filmed there. But so Matt Bunker's been incredibly helpful and helped with the covers as well. I can't speak highly enough of the guy. And what about you with the covers?
I just asked Gordon Docherty, who has cover designers and I've been using the same as him ever since. Yeah.
And they're called, what is it, more visual?
More visual. Yeah.
More visual.
Cover for the very first Legionary book. I thought it was brilliant. It's just so atmospheric, it draws you in. Yeah. So that was why I chose them. Brilliant.
So hope that's been, it seems like people have enjoyed it, and the video will be up afterwards, so we can look through the comments over the next day or two and answer any specific questions that we didn't get to. Thanks ever so much, Stephen, for your time and for being such a great guest. And I'll let you go off now and have a pee.
Exactly. I'm busting.
Thanks, everybody.
All I know is. Thank you.
Thank you. See you all later. Bye.